Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, so you want to be a millionaire in like 7 years, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the goal.
right.
At least that's what everyone's asking about these days.
And legally too, which always adds an interesting layer to things.
Right. Gotta stay on the right side of the law.
Definitely. So we've got this stack of articles and resources folks have sent in, all tackling this millionaire in 7 years challenge.
Yeah, some are all about like the classic wealth building strategies,
Right.
income saving investing, but some get super specific, like how to do it while avoiding debt and interest completely.
Oh, interesting. So that'd be like the halal investing angle.
Exactly. And then we've even got some breakdowns of like really specific business ideas.
Oh, wow. So like actual ventures people could potentially start?
Yeah, and even blueprints for building like a diversified investment portfolio,
Yeah.
all while keeping those ethical considerations front and center.
Okay, so this deep dive is going to be all about dissecting these different paths to a million.
Yeah, breaking down the core principles and giving everyone a clear roadmap of what it takes.
Awesome. So first things first, it seems like having a solid income, a really good income, is like the foundation.
Oh, for sure. Every single source emphasizes that. Like you can't really build wealth quickly without a significant income stream.
Makes sense. You can't save and invest what you don't have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And within this 7-year time frame, you really need to be hitting those high numbers to make serious progress.
Right. And the articles point to some pretty specific fields as having that high earning potential.
Yeah, they all mention tech, like especially those FAANG companies. Everyone knows those.
Yeah, for sure. Then there's finance, medicine, engineering, like all those classic high paying fields.
And one source even throws out a number, like aiming for an annual income over $200,000.
Whoa. Okay, so that's the target to really fuel some serious savings.
Yep. If you can hit that, you're already in a great position.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But why do those specific fields tend to pay so well?
I think it boils down to two things, really. High demand and a limited supply of people with the right skills.
Okay, so it's like a classic supply and demand situation.
Exactly. Think about it. The whole world is going digital, right? So you need people who can build those systems, who understand AI, cloud computing, all that stuff.
Right, and those people are in high demand.
Huge demand.
Yeah.
And then you've got finance, which is complex healthcare, which is critical engineering, which requires serious problem-solving skills.
Okay, so these are all areas where you need specialized knowledge, often a lot of education.
And that translates to higher salaries. It's not just about the job title. It's about the specific in-demand skills you bring to the table.
So you could be an engineer, but if you're not specializing in a hot area, you might not hit those top salaries.
Right. It's all about finding that sweet spot where market demand and your expertise intersect.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've got the high-paying job route, but then entrepreneurship keeps popping up as a potential faster track.
Oh, definitely. It's
Yeah.
riskier, for sure, but the potential upside is massive.
Right, and all the articles talk about building scalable businesses, ones with strong profit margins.
Like e-commerce ventures, innovative tech startups, things like that.
Yeah, it's about capturing more of the value you create instead of just working for someone else.
Right. And they also highlight the importance of focusing on industries that are on the rise, like renewable energy, AI, health tech, all the areas with huge growth potential.
So timing and aligning with those market trends is key.
Absolutely. But even with the right industry, even with a great idea, entrepreneurship is still a gamble, right?
Oh, huge gamble.
Yeah.
It takes so much time and effort and often a lot of upfront capital.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee of success. I mean, so many startups fail.
For sure. But the potential reward, if you hit that sweet spot and tap into a real market and need it, can be life-changing.
Yeah, you can potentially scale way faster and earn way more than you ever could in a traditional job.
Right. It's that direct connection between your effort and the reward, but also that constant uncertainty.
Yeah, the workload, the stress of building something from nothing.
So definitely a different risk-reward profile compared to just climbing the corporate ladder.
For sure. And speaking of different paths, one thing the articles mentioned is side hustles.
Oh yeah, like the whole freelancing online business thing.
For those who aren't ready to go full-on entrepreneur, but still want to boost their income.
Right. So how much of a difference can a side hustle actually make?
Honestly, a pretty big one. Even an extra few hundred or a few $1,000s a month can really accelerate your savings.
Yeah, every bit counts, especially when you're trying to save aggressively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It all adds up and gives you more capital to invest sooner.
So it's about diversifying your income streams as much as possible.
Having multiple sources of revenue is never a bad thing.
Okay, so we've talked about the income side of the equation, but of course, what you do with that income is just as important.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings us to the frugality and savings piece, which seems to be like a huge theme.
Yeah, they don't just say save. They say live significantly below your means.
Right. It's not just about cutting out lattes. It's a complete mindset shift.
Yeah. One article even suggests living with parents or roommates to cut down on housing costs.
Which is often the biggest expense for most people.
For sure. So what are some less obvious but still effective ways to trim those expenses?
Well, beyond the big stuff like housing and transportation, it's about being mindful of all those little recurring costs.
Yeah, the ones that can sneak up on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Things like eating out all the time versus meal prepping.
Oh, right. And all those subscriptions you might not even be using.
Yeah, do you really need Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO Max, and all the others?
Probably not. And then there's the whole consumer mindset shift, you know?
Right. Repairing and reusing things instead of always buying new.
Yeah, it's about challenging those ingrained spending habits.
Becoming a more conscious consumer overall.
Okay, so we're earning good money, living frugally, but how aggressively do we actually need to save?
The sources are pretty clear on this. They recommend saving at least 50% of your income, if possible.
Whoa. Okay, that's serious dedication.
Yeah, it is. But to illustrate why they use this example,
Right.
say you're saving $60,000 annually,
Okay.
and you invest that in the S&P 500, which historically returns around 10% per year. The math says you could hit $1 million in about 10 years.
Okay, so that's with a $60,000 annual investment.
Exactly. And if you can save even more, you could potentially reach that goal even faster.
Wow. Okay, so income frugality, aggressive saving, we're building that foundation.
Yeah, now the question is, where do we put all that saved money to work?
Right. That's where the strategic investing part comes in.
Exactly. And it seems like the sources outline two main approaches.
Okay, so what are they?
There's the general approach, which is about broad market participation.
Okay.
And then there's the ethical halal approach, which avoids debt and interest-based investing.
So two very different philosophies.
Yeah, but both with the same goal of building wealth.
Right. So let's start with the general investment strategy. What are they recommending there?
Index funds keep coming up again and again, especially ones that track the S&P 500.
Yeah, like VOO or VTSAX. Those are the tickers they mention.
And the reason they're so popular is because they offer instant diversification.
Right. You're spreading your money across hundreds of companies.
Yeah, exactly. Which helps reduce risk compared to picking individual stocks.
Okay, makes sense. And they're also super low cost, right?
Yeah, the expense ratios are tiny, which means more of your returns stay in your pocket.
Right. So it's a simple and cost-effective way to ride the overall market growth.
Exactly. Now, real estate also gets mentioned quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. Real estate is always a hot topic.
The strategy they outline is finding undervalued properties, fixing them up,
Okay.
and then either selling for a profit or renting them out for ongoing income.
And then reinvesting those gains to buy more property.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But real estate is obviously a lot more hands-on than index funds.
For sure. You need more upfront capital. You got to deal with tenants or renovations.
Yeah, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
But the potential returns can be huge, especially in the right market.
Okay, so we've got index funds, real estate. What else do they talk about?
They emphasize maxing out tax-advantaged retirement accounts.
Oh, yeah, like 401ks, IRAs, HSAs, all that good stuff.
And the reason they're so important is because of the tax benefits.
Right. You either get a tax break now or you avoid taxes in retirement.
Exactly. And that lets your investments compound more effectively over time.
Because you're not losing a chunk of your gains to taxes each year.
Right. So it's a huge advantage for long-term wealth building.
Makes sense. So that's the general investing approach. Now let's dive into the ethical halal approach.
Okay, so this one is specifically for folks who want to avoid debt and interest entirely.
Right, which is a core principle of Islamic finance.
Exactly. So the focus here is on investing in companies whose business activities are considered permissible.
Okay, so no alcohol gambling, conventional finance, anything that conflicts with those principles.
Right. And instead of bonds, which pay interest, you're looking at equity-based investments.
So owning a piece of a company rather than lending them money.
Exactly. And there are also specific Islamic finance products like sukuk.
Okay, so how do you even find these Sharia-compliant companies and investments?
There are specialized financial indices that do the screening for you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like the Dow Jones Islamic Market Index or the FTSE Sharia Index.
Okay, so those can help you identify halal stocks.
And for real estate, the focus is on buying properties outright.
So no mortgages, no interest payments.
Right. And investing in physical assets like gold and silver is also considered permissible.
So those are the halal alternatives to bonds and cash.
Exactly. Now, going back to entrepreneurship for a minute.
Okay.
The sources really highlight some specific business ideas that could potentially lead to millionaire status in 7 years.
Oh, interesting. So let's hear anything bad of them. What are these potentially lucrative ventures?
Well, one that stands out is starting a digital marketing agency,
Okay, and why is that one so promising?
because every business needs a strong online presence these days.
True. So there's huge demand for those services.
Massive demand. And you can start relatively small and scale up as you get more clients.
Right. It's all about proving your value and delivering results.
And the revenue potential is huge. Some agencies are making millions per year.
Wow. Okay, so what are the keys to success in that field?
Well, you need a deep understanding of all the online marketing tactics.
Like SEO, social media ads, all that stuff.
Exactly. And you need to be able to show your clients a return on their investment.
So it's not just about creating pretty websites, it's about driving actual business outcomes.
Right. And of course, building strong relationships with your clients is crucial.
Yeah, and staying ahead of the curve because the digital landscape is constantly changing.
For sure. So digital marketing is one high potential idea. What else is on the list?
Okay, what else you got?
Business consultancy is another one, especially if you have expertise in a specific area.
Like finance, HR operations, something like that?
Exactly. You can command premium fees for your specialized knowledge.
Right, because you're solving high-level problems for businesses.
And you could often secure those high-paying corporate clients.
Okay, so the earning potential is there. And what about product-based businesses?
They mentioned private label products as a really interesting option.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. What's the gist again?
Basically, you partner with a manufacturer to create your own branded version of an existing product.
Okay. So you don't have to invent something completely new.
Right. It's more about finding a profitable niche and creating a strong brand.
And then scaling up by expanding your product line.
Exactly. And e-commerce and online services in general are also highlighted.
Yeah, because the barriers to entry are relatively low.
Right. You can set up shop online pretty easily using platforms like Shopify.
And reach a global audience through digital marketing.
And the key to long-term growth is diversifying your offerings.
Okay, so those are some of the online-focused businesses. What about brick-and-mortar stuff?
Real estate and construction are always mentioned for their high return potential.
Especially in growing markets.
Right, and they specifically talk about residential and commercial development.
Okay, then there's financial services, which are always in demand.
Yeah, things like accounting, tax preparation, financial planning.
And then education and training is another big one.
Especially online platforms that cater to those in-demand fields like tech and healthcare.
Right, so those are some of the big ideas. But what if someone is starting with very little capital?
Well, there are definitely options for those with limited budgets.
Okay, so let's talk low-cost, high-return business ideas.
On the service side, they mention things like carpet cleaning, pressure washing, mobile car detailing, pet grooming.
Okay, so those are all services that people need, and you can get started without a huge investment.
Exactly. You might need to buy some specialized equipment, but the ongoing costs are pretty low.
And you can often operate locally.
Yeah. Building up a client base in your community.
What about online businesses for those with limited funds?
Drop shipping is a popular one. You sell products online without holding any inventory yourself.
Right. So you're basically the middleman between the customer and the supplier.
Exactly. And then there's Amazon FBA, where you leverage Amazon's fulfillment network.
Okay, so you do need to buy inventory up front for that one.
Yeah. But you can potentially reach a massive audience.
And of course, we talked about starting a digital marketing agency as a low-cost option.
If you have the skills, you can start offering those services right away.
What about more creative online businesses?
Content creation on platforms like YouTube is a good one.
Yeah, or starting a blog or a podcast.
Exactly. You often just need your time and some basic equipment.
And then you can monetize your audience through ads, sponsorships, affiliate marketing.
And freelance graphic design or web development are also good options.
Right, because your main investment is in software and your skills.
Exactly. And then there's some local service businesses you can start on a shoestring budget.
Like what?
They mention things like a tiffin service for meal delivery,
Okay.
or operating vending machines in strategic locations,
Interesting.
or even offering yoga or fitness training in rented spaces or online.
So those are all businesses with low startup costs, but good potential for profit.
Yeah, the key is putting in the work, being resourceful, marketing yourself effectively.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about income-saving investing entrepreneurship.
It's been a comprehensive deep dive.
And it seems like there are some underlying financial habits that are crucial for success regardless of the path you choose.
Absolutely. Avoiding debt is huge. All the source is stress.
Yeah, pay off any high-interest debt ASAP and avoid accumulating more.
And they even suggest using cash whenever possible to avoid those tempting credit card swipes.
Okay, so debt is enemy number one. What else is essential?
Building a solid emergency fund is crucial.
Right, because life throws curveballs.
Exactly. And you don't want to rely on credit cards or loans when those unexpected expenses hit.
Yeah, an emergency fund gives you that financial peace of mind.
Mm-hmm. It's your safety net. And then, of course, there's the power of compounding.
Ah, yes.
And the eighth wonder of the world.
The earlier you start investing and the more consistent you are, the more your money will grow over time.
Right. It's like a snowball rolling downhill. Just
Yeah.
gets bigger and bigger. Exactly. And there are even online calculators that can show you the impact of compounding.
So you can visualize that exponential growth and stay motivated?
So to sum it all up, the core strategies for legally becoming a millionaire in 7 years.
They all come down to maximizing income, minimizing expenses, saving aggressively, and investing wisely.
Exactly. And for those who want to potentially speed up the process, entrepreneurship is the way to go.
Right. But remember, achieving any ambitious financial goal in a short time frame requires serious dedication.
You need to be disciplined, strategic, and adaptable.
No matter which path you choose, there will be challenges along the way.
For sure. It's not going to be easy, but it's definitely possible.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening.
Okay.
We've explored all these different strategies and tactics. But what do you think is the single most important factor for success?
That's a good question.
Is it about choosing the right investments or the right business idea?
But what to do?
Exactly. Or is it more about the consistency and discipline you apply?
How you do.
Right. That's the real question.
I think it's a combination of both. You need a solid plan, but you also need the unwavering commitment to execute that plan.
Yeah. It's about making smart choices, but also having that relentless drive and discipline.
That's what ultimately separates those who achieve their goals from those who don't.
Well said. So there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the world of legally becoming a millionaire in 7 years.
We've given you the roadmap. Now it's up to you to take action.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Catch you next time.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of How to Become a Millionaire. Honestly, at this point, you could probably just sell air in a jar and call it freshly harvested from the Himalayas. People would buy it. If you've enjoyed the ridiculousness or just need some questionable inspiration, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And hey, if you've got your own wild millionaire idea, share it with us. We might just invest in it, or at least pretend we did. Catch you next time, and remember, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a private island where you can pretend it does.